Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my dear brothers and sisters and viewers of Iqra TV. Welcome to another episode of Real Talk. I'm your host Iqbal Bana, and as usual every week we try and bring to you people of interest to our Muslim community, people who are making a difference in the lives of the Muslim community. And again today I have two very interesting guests who have joined me, and we'll be talking to them in a little while. But can I just say today is a historical day. We are seeing a new Prime Minister in Boris Johnson being appointed. The Queen has invited him and he has taken up the responsibility of being the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. And he is a man who has said he is going to be uniting the community. And I hope that he sticks to his words, because in the past he has made comments which have hurt the Muslim community in many, many different respects. Not just his comments about Muslim women who wear the veil and who look like letterboxes and who bank robbers, but even before that he spoke about young children who were being radicalized when he was mayor of London, and he made some derogatory comments about Muslim community and his presence in the UK. So I hope today that we witness a new Boris Johnson, a more inclusive, who is willing to accept the multicultural Britain, the multi-faith community that makes the rich fabric of the United Kingdom what it is today. And we look upon him in the hope that he will not only work for those people that he normally sees as part of his constituency, but people like you and me who are, in his eyes, are different. He comes from a background which is quite interesting as well, yet it seems that he has changed his views on a lot of things. So we hope that the new Prime Minister, we congratulate him on his appointment, and we look forward to working with him. And I know that my very dear friend Qari Asim, and I congratulate him as well, has been appointed as a special advisor to the government on Muslim issues. And I'm sure those of you who know Qari Asim the way I do, I'm sure he will be a good representative, and he will put forward the case of what Muslims in this country feel about their presence and how they feel they need to be treated and to be considered to be full citizens of the United Kingdom. And again, as I say, we pray that Allah gives Boris Johnson some wisdom and gives Qari Sahab the strength and the ability to work that he has been doing, continue that work for many more years to come. Let me come back to the program today. Today I have some special guests. Now, everybody who is now going for Hajj, or has been for Hajj, or intends to go for Hajj, may Allah accepts your du'as. And those who are going, may Allah accepts their going to the Hajj, gives them the good health and the ability to perform their Hajj in the best possible way they can, and they receive the full reward that a Hajj can provide. Well, the gentleman I have with me is Dr. Muhammad Jiwa, MBE, a general practitioner who's come all the way from Bolton. He's been a general practitioner for 21 years, and with him is Sulaiman Ghazi, who's not far away from here, from Dewsbury, lives in Saviltown. They both are part of the British Hajj delegation, which actually is a group of volunteers, all doctors and some helpers like Muhammad, who go out paying their own way and helping the Hujjajis over there with medical issues that they may face during their time in Hajj. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi, Dr. Saab and by Muhammad. Welcome to Real Talk. Thank you for coming. You've come all the way from Bolton. I hope you had a good journey here, not any sort of difficulty. And we are very hospitable. We didn't check any passports. We don't have a border control at the moment, so no difficulty with that. And Muhammad, you're just down the road from Saviltown.
Yes.
Welcome to Real Talk, and thank you for the work you do. Can I just ask, how and when did you start this? I know Lord Adam Patel, may Allah bless him and give him the highest place in Jannah, was part of that group that was set up. But how far does it go, this group? How was it started? Who started it? And what work have you done so far?
Well, walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In the early 2000s, when Labour was in government, they had an initiative to send a medical team out to Saudi Arabia during the Hajj period.
Right.
And with the medical team, they would send a couple of Foreign Office officials as well, in case there were issues around deaths during Hajj, passport issues and so on. The government used to fund the accommodation, the travel, the food, and in those days they would also buy medication from Jeddah, transport it to Mecca, and we would run clinics in the hotel. And even at that time, when it was a government-funded initiative, all the doctors that were part of the delegation did it as voluntary work. So none of the doctors got paid. So from early 2000, the doctors in the delegation have never been paid, and they've never been asked to get paid. because the doctors have always felt it's a blessing not only to go out there and perform Hajj, but primarily to go and look after the Hujjaj who may need medical help.
And do you have a rough idea how many, I mean, those figures have been different figures, you know, every year. Some say 15,000, 20,000. Do you know roughly how many people from Britain are blessed to go to Saudi for Hajj?
At the moment, the number is at 25,000.
25,000.
And collectively,
Mashallah.
it's 3 million from around the world
Yes.
performing Hajj.
Right.
So this carried on for many years until the austerity measures kicked in this country.
Right.
And when a whole number of projects got cancelled, about 5-6 years ago, the doctors that were going regularly decided that the work that we were doing and the recognition we received from the Hujjaj and the blessings we received was too valuable just to bring it all to an end. So at that time we decided to make British Hajj Delegation into a charity, and for the last 5 years the doctors have been going out at their own expense. So we now
Oh,
pay,
subhanallah.
we pay for our own accommodation, our own travel, our own food. We take holiday from work. So from my annual leave allowance within my practice, I would take time off to go and do this work.
Right.
And at the moment, although we go out primarily to look after the Hujjaj, even the medicines that we take out is part of our own luggage allowance.
Wow.
And there's been a year or two in the past few years where, because we have had no government support here, we've actually paid for hotels, flights, and not
Oh,
been
so
a gobble,
it's like
not
you
not
go-
able to go out.
Like any other Hujjaj, you actually pay for the whole
Yeah.
package.
We pay for the whole
So it
package.
comes out of your pocket, and then above and that you give free
give free
support
we do.
services. So I mean, what type of sort of issues are emerging when you go there? You know, apart from the I've got a headache, I mean, beyond that, the basic stuff. What other complicated medical issues do you face when you're there?
Well, our team predominantly is GPs,
Right.
and the reason we take GPs is because we want to provide community public health. There is the argument put by some that Saudis already have excellent facilities, so why do we need to go across? And there's a good reason for it. The kind of things we tend to see are rashes, blisters. This year, I think the number one issue is going to be dehydration.
Right.
Because of the heat out there, we're going to be getting up to 50, 55 degrees, and especially considering during the days of Hajj, a lot of the brothers will be in ihram, so will be exposed, top half will be exposed, getting prickly heat, rashes, exhaustion, fatigue. Those are the kind of things that we'll be looking at.
Right.
Where we feel that there are issues that are beyond our ability to manage, we would ask them to go into hospital. But instead of just asking them to go in, what we tend to do is write a clinical letter that they can take and share with the doctor at the hospital to
Right.
provide more information.
So going back to the question that, you know, or well, the statement you made, people will ask, well, why are you doing this?
Yes.
You know, there's medical services over there, but are those medical services freely accessible, and are they able to cope with the numbers of people that present themselves over there? I mean,
The
I don't- have
services-
you looked at that by any chance?
Yes, the Saudi clinics that are available are freely available, and the
Right.
hospital services are freely available, or they are free. In terms of demand, we, especially in Mina, we have a Saudi clinic right in front of us on the other side of the road, Saudi clinic number 10.
Right.
Even though there is a Saudi clinic, the queues that build up outside our clinic literally go down the corridor onto the road,
Wow.
because we are British doctors. We understand the way the NHS works. People who are coming to see us have come from the NHS and already have a clinical pathway, whether it's for heart problems, asthma. We manage them according to British standards.
Right. And they bring their medical knowledge.
They
with
bring
them.
the knowledge. And
Right.
also, the other thing is that the medicine they bring is medicine that we're familiar with. Now, you could have paracetamol, which is a generic name, yet countries around the world will have a different brand name for paracetamol.
Right.
So when they take their medicines to the Saudi clinics and it's branded, they don't always know what the drug is, whereas we would know. Now, the main issue for me, in terms of looking at it from a UK perspective, is that for every one patient I treat out there that comes back that doesn't have to go to A&E, that saves the local economy about £200.
Right.
For every one patient who's got asthma or bronchitis who has an exacerbation of flare-up while they're out, and we treat it with appropriate treatment, steroids, whatever we need.
Mm.
If they come back in good health,
That's
then
less
we've
burden on
on the system.
on the NHS.
Yeah, if they went into hospital here because they came back with a flare-up, it would cost the system around £3,000 for each admission into
Right.
hospital.
Gotcha.
So we do it. That's a side benefit to the UK economy
Right.
of us treating people. And when you think on average, in the days of Mina, we treat about 1,000 patients.
Wow.
So
That's quite a lot.
that's quite a lot. And considering we start clinics at 6:30 in the morning after Fajr, and we run it right the way through without stopping till 9 in the evening.
So how many are there in your group? How many doctors? Are there male and female doctors? Or are there majority male? Or
It varies from year to year depending on the doctor's availability, and we will have anything between 6 to 10. Now this year we've got 7 doctors going out,
Right.
of which one is a new doctor who's not been with us before, and one of the doctors is a female doctor
Right.
who is actually a community gynecologist.
Right.
So she's very familiar with issues related to female health.
Right. So, I mean, you've been doing this, as you say, for quite some time, and obviously the government stopped the support. With that support, did we get some sort of a connectivity with the Saudi government? So did they officially recognize your work that you were doing? And has that continued or has that stopped? Do you get Saudi support or not?
Since the official Labour-supported movement stopped, initially we were getting some recognition,
Right.
and Saudi authorities getting recognition from the UK government meant that the Saudis were more keen to engage and support us.
Right.
Since the UK government has stopped providing support, and when I say support, we're not looking for funding, primarily it's a letter of support
Right.
to say that we recognise these NHS doctors going across. Unfortunately, it's put Saudi authorities in a difficult position because they don't want to antagonise the UK government by going against what the UK government have decided.
Right.
So even
Well-
though we're doing it voluntarily, it's a difficult position.
I mean, that sounds like a sort of a dichotomy here that, you know, the government of Saudi Arabia should welcome you.
True.
That, you know, you're taking the burden away from the pressures of the health service over there and supporting, you know, British Hujjajis who are going there and looking after them. I mean, that to me does not make sense as to why the Saudi government, on their own initiative, could not sanction your group as a welcome team of people giving additional support to the Saudi health service. But obviously we'll talk about that in a little while. But Mohammed, I mean, you don't have a medical background, do you?
No, I don't know.
So, you know, you go there and support Dr. Mohammed and his colleagues, do you?
Yes, I do. Yeah, I joined the delegation about 3 years ago
Right,
through one of my cousin who is part of the delegation.
right,
But it's been 3 years, mashallah, it's excellent. I fly out with the doctors. My role is just to control the crowd, just talk to people there,
right.
what the doctors need help. It's been excellent, mashallah.
You like doing this every year for 3 years?
I would love
You
to
must-
go
you
every
must-
year. I would love to go every year.
All right, mashallah, very good. So, I mean, how do you find the Hujjajis? I mean, you're obviously meeting people who are in distress at times.
Yes, I am, yeah.
Right, and they want urgent treatment.
Yeah.
And obviously they've got pressures on them. If
They
they're
do.
treating 1,000 patients, you know,
Yeah.
in a few days, you know, that's a few hundred people being presented every day.
Mm.
So how do you manage to calm things down?
It's like everybody's in need then, and
Yeah.
everybody wants to see a doctor.
Yeah.
So we just calm everybody down, just queue up calmly, and they get to see a doctor very quickly. Where
Right.
if they go to a Saudi clinic, and it does take time
Right.
for them to see any patient. Usually they send them to us.
What the British?
The
British-
Saudi clinics, yeah, they send them to go to that medic.
Is that? I mean, Dr. Saab, are there sort of language issues that they
Yeah.
face? over
Yeah, they
there?
have, yeah.
And the
So
reason-
obviously, with the doctors from the UK,
Yeah.
that would be one issue that they don't have to worry about.
Well, the thing is that although we're all British doctors,
Yeah.
the spread of languages we have, I'm fluent in Gujarati.
Right.
I can speak Urdu. We've got a doctor who speaks Malayalam,
Right.
one who speaks Punjabi. So as far as the far Asian languages are concerned, between English and these other languages,
They're all covered.
99.9% of
covered.
population we can quite easily communicate with.
Right. I mean, how do you go for the Hajj rituals there?
Mm.
You know, we all go and we say to Allah, please give us the tawfiq to make the most of while we're there.
Yes.
So how do you balance your religious commitment to praying the 5 times namaz, doing the tawaf and all of that? How do you balance that? Because that must be an enormous task.
The difference for us from the average Hujjaj is that the Hujjaj goes with the mindset that because I've paid for this, I want to do as much ibadat as possible. So they may do plenty of umrahs, they may spend a lot of time in haram and so on. We go with the mindset that we are there to treat the Hujjaj.
Right.
And therefore, at the time when the azan occurs, we close the clinic.
Right.
We don't tend to go into haram, into the middle, into the central,
The
in
inner part of the
Mataf
haram,
area.
yeah.
We stay outside on the street side, if not on the grounds of the haram, which means that when Salah finishes, we can quickly get back
Quickly
to the
get back,
clinic and open the clinic up again.
So where do you hold the clinic? Let's say you're in Makkah, for example. Do you have a designated place where you hold the clinic, or do you sort of, does that move around?
No, what we tend to do is whichever hotel we're staying in, we'll either use the reception area with the consent of the hotel owner,
Right.
or use the mezzanine floor when they're not having dinner.
Right.
Last year, when we went, we actually used the mezzanine floor, and we were sharing the floor with a medical team from Singapore.
All right.
And interestingly, Singapore, India, various Far Eastern countries, they send an official government team out there, including public health specialists, nurses, and so on. But it's quite an experience for us to work alongside the Singapore team and see the difference in how healthcare is delivered in two different countries.
All right.
So it's quite
So,
interesting.
I mean, this year you're going, inshallah, in 2 days' time?
Inshallah.
2 or 3 days' time. So, obviously you come here at the perfect optimal moment in time, because Hujjajis, a couple of groups have gone,
Yes.
but the majority of Hajis will be leaving soon and making their way to Makkah and Medina. And as I say, may Allah bless them
Ameen.
and accept the contribution that they've made in making this enormous journey, which is a faraz for many people. So this year, those who are going, inshallah, maybe in a few years, 2 days' time, if they want to contact you, how can they access you? Where can they get in touch? Where are you going to be based?
Couple of ways they can contact us. The first is if they log on to our website, which is britishhajdelegation.org.uk,
Right,
we will keep that updated on a regular basis.
right,
Inshallah, we're leaving on Saturday morning from here to go out, and we should get to Makkah, get our Umrah done by Sunday evening, which means Monday the first clinic will open up.
right.
Once we get there Monday, inshallah, our Saudi phone numbers will also be on the website,
All right, I see.
but we also have a Facebook page for British Hajj Delegation, so we'll be putting the Saudi numbers on there as well.
Right,
Now, this is something that's evolved over the last couple of years, because not everybody, if you look at the number of people there and trying to walk from one side of Haram to the other, could be a 2-3 hour journey because of the number of crowds. And not everybody stays around Haram before and after Hajj. Some people have to move away miles away because of accommodation reasons. So what we've done in the last couple of years, which inshallah we'll do this year, is also put the doctor's Saudi number on the Facebook page and website.
right.
So if you can't come to us physically, ring us and we'll guide you like a telephone consultation,
Right.
and we'll guide
mashallah.
you on what you need to do or what you need to purchase from the local pharmacy.
Right. So have you got a base now where you're going to be situated in Makkah?
Yeah, this year, because we have for the first time decided to go with a tour operator, we've literally gone like a normal Hujjaj would,
Right.
booking the full package. So we will be staying in the hotel,
Right.
which is not far from the hospital, the old hospital near Haram. But again, we'll put the full address on our website and Facebook.
Okay. So I mean, in terms of people who are going for Hajj, as I say, and you going there, I mean, this takes an enormous amount of dedication from the people like you. Right. So the doctors who come with you, I mean, are they all general practitioners, as you say, from the Greater Manchester area,
No.
or from wider UK?
We've got doctors across the country.
Right.
We've had doctors from Scotland. One of the doctors this year is from Leeds.
Right.
One's from Birmingham. We've got a couple that usually comes from London. 2 from
Sheffield.
Middleton. We've got Sheffield.
2 from Sheffield.
Rochdale. Me from Bolton. So we don't have a restricted area where the doctors come from.
Right.
But the only one thing we do ask any of the doctors who come with us is that you've got to have done your own Farz Hajj before you can come
Right.
with us.
Yeah. So
And
they
that's-
must have completed their Farz Hajj.
For 2 reasons.
Okay.
One is that we wouldn't want any doctor, if there was a major incident and we had to support the Hujjaj,
Right.
to forfeit our Hajj if it was
Right.
for us. If it's Nafil, we pay the dumb,
That's right.
whatever we need to do.
Right.
And the second thing is, until you've really done, no matter how many umrahs you've done, until you've done one Farz Hajj,
Hajj, yes.
you don't know the physical and mental challenge that you will get
Especially in the heat.
in the
In
heat.
the mountain, yes. it
So to
would.
treat other people when you're having your own challenges is difficult.
All right. So I mean, obviously, this is an enormous sacrifice on your part and your colleagues. And may Allah give you even more strength.
Ameen.
I mean, this is real kismet,
Yes.
real charity work in my view,
Mm.
especially if it's funded by yourselves as well,
Yeah.
with no external support whatsoever. So you take your medication, and the medicines with you as well. And how? I mean, do you buy the medicines, or do somebody donates it, or what happens?
No, alhamdulillah, we've got one pharmacist from when we first became a charity
Right.
who year on year has donated all the medicines. No
Mashallah.
questions asked. Every year I'll send him a list, and only 3-4 days ago I got the boxes of medicines
Right.
that have come. And there's antibiotics, painkillers, dressings, bandages, everything I've asked for.
Mm.
And the blessing for that pharmacist and his team is that year on year they've never asked for recognition and openly said to me, don't mention my name.
All right.
I want to
Subhanallah.
remain anonymous.
That is
But
true
this
Muslim way of doing
true
things.
That this is donation from me,
Right.
and I'm doing my share towards the delegation.
Well, whoever you are, may Allah give you even more blessings and
Ameen.
rewards,
Ameen.
not just in this world, but you and your family in the akhirah as well, because that is what real Islam is all about. The right hand should not, when it gives, the left hand should not know where it's going to. So obviously we've been talking about the British Hajj delegation and the amazing work that they do over there, helping the Hajjis who are going for Hajj. And out of 25,000, many I'm sure will fall ill and will need your services. We've been talking to Dr. Mohammed Jiwa from Bolton and Dr. Mohammed Khadzi from Savaltown in Dewsbury about their work and how they do. Inshallah, I'll continue this discussion. We're going to go for a short break and have your cup of tea, coffee or faluda, whatever it is that you enjoy. We'll be back very soon. If there's any questions that you want to ask, then please feel free to ring the number, and we'll try and answer those questions as soon as we can. In the meantime, may Allah bless you, and inshallah we'll see you very soon. Take care. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.